You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hat.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hey, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
Yes, welcome. We're moving along in our Winona phase this week. We are going towards some current productions, even though they are set in some distant past, but still something a little bit newer and not Winona and not Cher, which makes us a little sad, but this is still something that we love. So we're going to be talking about the Apple series Palm Royale, which is amazing. We both loved it. And this is going to contain severe spoiler alerts. So you may not want to listen if you don't want the spoiler alerts. If you haven't checked this out, we really recommend checking out because it is such a great classic set in the late 60s, around the time of the moon landing, 1969. It deals with the socialites of Palm Beach, Florida, which was a huge deal in this club called the Palm Royale. I'm not sure if Palm Royale is an actual club, or is that something that's made up for
It's probably just made up, and I'm sure there's probably clubs that look just like that, or probably were. From what I remember reading, it was very much based upon what that was like in that period of time. So there probably was a club very much like it.
I bet there were quite a few. I just didn't know if that one in particular was, but yeah, probably not. Maybe that one was made up. But if you know that, let us know, because I'm not too well versed in that area of history. We wanted to talk about this because we both really loved it. The fashion was amazing. Erin is representing today.
I am. I found a shirt that reminded me of the era. I didn't get it because of it. I just happened to look in my closet. I was like, what might depict it? As I'm a dork.
It's a nice kind of diamond pattern. Is it or circle patterns, kind of white, silver, and black all go together. It looks very 60s, very nice.
Oh, thank you.
It adds the
Thanks
theme.
for describing it.
I thought they were diamonds at first because I cannot see well. This is something we wanted to talk about because it deals with high-end socialites of that time who were part of this exclusive club called Palm Royale, and the characters involved in that, and how this one person who is basically an outsider, even though she eventually becomes part of the club, she still is an outsider, named Maxine, played by Kristen Wiig. She's hilarious and amazing, and I love her. Still see her mannerisms from when she was on Saturday Night Live reflected on this series, and it still cracks me up. But she is a great main character, and she is so obsessed with trying to get into this exclusive club, the Palm Royale. She's grown up thinking about just becoming a part of this group. She's looked at their social advertisement called the Shiny Sheet, which is a news article, like a periodical, or I don't know, newspaper that just devotes time to them.
I think it comes out weekly or something.
Oh, maybe it's like a newsletter
of like
kind
the
of
who's
thing.
who's who of Palm Royale, like area. I don't know who puts it out, but it seems like everybody wants to be mentioned.
Yeah.
It's like a gossip rag for that, for the club. Yeah.
And she's been reading that, keeping up. She knows who all the characters are. She tries to imbue herself and be amongst these people. Unbeknownst to the people at the club, they think she's just kind of a nobody when she walks up. But she actually is married into one of the higher families of that area, the Delacourts. But she doesn't actually lead with that, which I just realized it's kind of interesting that she does not say that. She introduces herself as Maxine Simmons instead of Maxine Simmons Delacourt or Delacourt Simmons. She is so desperate to become a part of this. We find out why she wants to be a part of this a little bit later on with her own story. I think we then get introduced to all these characters like Allison Janney, who plays the queen bee of this group of people who are the highest echelon in Palm Royale. Julia Duffy is also a part of it. Evelyn, Allison Janney's character, the queen bee, kind of puts down, kind of makes her seem like she's kind of not so bright, just drinks a lot and says silly things that she can mock.
It seems like they all have the hierarchy, and it happens to be Maxine's husband's aunt is the highest one, Norma. So I think that's who everybody inspires to be, because she has the most money and everything.
Yeah, and they don't learn that she is a part of this until later. So they're not impressed with her in their first meeting. They just kind of want to shoo her away as they talk about their charity business and who's got the most charity or who's named the Volunteer of the Year award, which is not Evelyn the Queen Bee this year, which it has been like 9 seasons in a row.
Which is funny because all the charities are not really for real charities. It's just charities that they've created and the money is going right back into them somehow.
We find out later that they're raising a bunch of money, but a lot of it is just going back into their fortunes so they can throw more soirees and make themselves seem important and charitable for that purpose.
Which you would think everybody who goes to those things knows exactly what's happening because they probably all do the exact same stuff.
I think it's very unspoken because there is a scene later on where Maxine does say something about Mary, who's played by Julia Duffy, Designing Women. Hello. Yeah, but she is asking her to give her money for the fibs. It's for cirrhosis, fibroidal cirrhosis, liver fibroids, whatever, you'll know. But she keeps saying it's the fibs. That's the main thing, and it's really annoying. She wants her to pay a certain amount for a table at her charity, and they're all kind of talking about like, oh, you made this much for your money, you made this much, and Maxine is like, it sounds like a competition. And they all stop and they're like, do you not see this as, we would never consider this competition, this is important. And so they can't even face it themselves. They're trying to just bury that. It's kind of silly because it's like, oh, she called out what it was, like a spade for a spade, and they were like, no, it is not that, because this is like who they are as people. But yeah, I think that Maxine she becomes accepted into the club because she ends up connecting with Dinah in one of her lower moments. Dinah is also one of the inner group high society people that she is kind of competing with the Queen Bee, Evelyn, that year, but she ends up finding her at a lower moment where she's fighting with her paramour, not her husband. She's having an affair with a tennis instructor at the club. Maxine orchestrates a fender bender so that she can meet her and talk to her and feel like, oh, she's in debt to me and maybe she'll, sign me in. And then she finds out Dinah has a lot of secrets. She's, having this pregnancy with her paramour, like it can't happen. And Maxine sees her way in to be like, ooh, I could be her friend. And I think she genuinely is a caring person, but she also sees an opportunity to be accepted into the club this way. Because in order for you to be a part of the club, you need sponsors and people that will vouch for you. And Dinah is an upstanding member in that. Dinah confides in her, and Maxine gets her the help that she needs to maybe get the procedure that Dinah would like to have done to quote unquote solve her problem. And so with that, Dinah's kind of indebted to Maxine and ends up sponsoring her for the club. So she gets in. That enrages Evelyn, the Queen Bee, Alice Janney, because she doesn't want her in the club. Because Evelyn has a long-standing relationship with Norma, played by Carol Burnett, which is legend. I forgot to mention that legend, who was her best friend, who was like the ultimate Queen Bee. That's the aunt. That, is now, as they say, embolized. So she's had an embolism and she can't really, she's in ailing health. And Evelyn has heard from Norma before she embolized that her nephew, who's like her only remaining family, married some pageant queen gutter trash or whatever she describes her as. Evelyn's impression of her is that she is a gold digger who got herself pregnant, which I still fail to see how that happened on her own, and was trying to buy her way into this family. So Evelyn has no respect for her at all and doesn't want her there. She doesn't see her as like, you're not, of true money, when it's really funny because some of these other people in high, like kind of standing at this club, they've married into.
I think they want to forget that too.
Yeah. It's so funny. There's a lot of deflection in this. There's a lot of mean girl activity going here. What's your impression of some of the characters, like the Palm Royale high society people? What were your thoughts watching it?
Well, it seemed like, of course, very cliquey. When you look at these women who are trying to be like so noticeable, fantastic or whatever, that they must have their own demons or their own self-esteem or their own things that they have never worked on. But then they see Maxine, so they're like, okay, well, we have this commonality. We all can hate her. We all can make ourselves look better. The people that were the lowest, like Mindy Cohen's character, Anne, is like kind of like on the bottom. So then she can also be like, let me be rude or find some dirt or anything. And so they're all unlikable, I think, except who Maxine ends up befriending, the bartender in the club, who is Ricky Martin.
He's beautiful.
Because they're both like normal people. They both know they don't have money and they're just trying to survive as humans.
And they're both caring too.
Yeah.
They both care about people.
Yeah, and they have this intense, they're enemies, but then just from different circumstances, they realize, wait a minute, we have a lot in common. And then they become best friends. I love their friendship.
Me too.
It's unexpected and it's really deep, and you could tell they both really love each other. So there's a couple of characters that I did think like, maybe I like her, or even Skeet's daughter, Laura Dern. I started to think, oh, she's not so bad. But then I was like, oh, wait, she is. They just don't seem like their layers are go very deep to good. They seem like they're just very, I don't know, they just have lived this privileged life for so long that they are really cutthroat and very mean, especially, and then Maxine is the one that they can take everything out on because she wasn't born in it and she's not as wealthy or known as the rest of them.
They can smell her desperation to be one of them, and they use that to their advantage. It's almost like in cliquey groups where somebody senses, oh, there's an outsider and we can treat them as we want because they want in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did love how Maxine ended up just being like, you know what, I'm going to just move into the Delacourt mansion.
She started doing whatever she wanted. She did some fake it till you make it. She did stay at the hotel and didn't quite have the money. She bid something, she didn't have the money, but it was like she was desperate to fit in. Mm-hmm. She knew she needed money. And I also think that with Linda, or Penelope, she used to be Penelope Rollins, but then she changed her name to Linda, Laura Dern. But Linda, I think, actually liked her. I think she actually did sense something about her that was like, oh, she's kind of misguided. She wants into this society that I know all too well.
Right.
And she was the one who signed off, like the third signature to kind of keep her in the club, because it's like a trial basis or whatever.
Right.
And she was like, if you want this, okay, I'll sign this. But like,
I got out. I didn't want to be in it, so that's because Linda was like, her father, Skeet or whatever, is like very, very wealthy. And she's like, I don't want any part of it. I don't want to get married. I need to just go away and create a different life.
Which is such a contrast with Maxine, because Maxine married into this, didn't really have access to this money, maybe to the understanding, and really wanted in because she really just wanted to belong. But Linda had always belonged and always felt like, I don't like this, because she had that experience, right? She had that kind of privileged upbringing, to kind of be able to say that. And she does do, like, I think she does try to, set up the women's movement and this radicalized, very feminist group where they are trying to do things that would be considered illegal. But at that point, they were standing up for their rights.
It becomes a little more radical when Mary joins in.
Mary radicalizes it. Julia Duffy, you always got to watch out for her. But yeah, it's odd to me to learn that, again, these are big spoilers, people.
And watch the series if you need to.
And it's so good, too. It's so worth it. Linda was engaged to Doug, Maxine's husband, and didn't tell her that. And I don't know if she went up to her intentionally. It was implied that she did to kind of scope her out.
Right.
But she also didn't treat her poorly. Maxine's like, oh, God, no, I'm a wife. Very like, no. You're like, why would I want that? Oh, that's so cute. I don't sense it was with Linda that she disliked Maxine. I think she just kind of was like, well, she's a little misguided, but actually she's got a charm to her.
Yeah, she's a little more curious. Just even when she brought her into the women's group thing in the library or the bookstore or whatever it was, she's just like so clueless about how, like, what? Why would women want rights? Why would women want to do this? Why would they, it's just so bizarre.
I do love Kristen Wiig. I just love her. The way she portrays characters. And then, Linda and Maxine are friends. And then when Maxine finds out you were engaged to my husband, she's really mad at both of them, but more so at Doug. They explain it was a marriage arranged between two wealthy families and that they didn't love each other. But Doug did cheat on Linda, and it was with Maxine. She was the second woman, and Maxine never knew about it. Yeah. So you kind of see some dirtbag vibes from Doug. Like, you kind of see, okay, maybe this just wasn't his thing, but he didn't have to go about that way.
It does seem like throughout the whole thing, you see a shift in Doug. He's the pilot, and he's so devoted to Maxine. Then you see a shift once he realizes, oh, the money would actually be really nice and living in this lifestyle would be really nice. Oh, I quit my job. I'm doing this. I'm kind of acting like all these people, trying to get fast money or get known and start this business. His personality has a very big personality shift once the money starts coming in play too.
He does. And I wonder if that's why he's starting to get back into that old life of like, having money and just being able to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Why he does have that affair with Mitzi, the nail tech. Cindy Crawford's daughter.
Really?
Mitzi, her name is Kaya Gerber. Yes, if you look at her, you're like, that is old school Cindy Crawford.
Funny.
Yeah. So
I guess you can see that. But yeah, anything you hear Doug and Maxine, they seem like they really love each other. And so that's why it's so shocking, especially because of all the people, like we've talked about, people who Maxine has known because she's read the magazine or the little thing that comes out, the shiny sheet. So she has that. But those aren't her real friends. But Mitzi, her nail tech, has become like her true friend.
That's confidant.
So that's why it's also like probably even more devastating when Mitzi's telling her about this guy. Then, again, spoilers. But then when Maxine realizes at the one of the last episodes who it was that she's talking about, it's just really devastating, for her and sad. And it probably makes her realize like, oh, has this been happening all along? Was everything not real? Then you have to realize too, was this a sacrifice Maxine was willing to take to live in this lifestyle?
I think that's what it is. She's starting to see the downfall and the negative side of like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of when Doug was in this lifestyle, maybe it got to his head or maybe it just became part of what was expected of him, hanging around with certain people, this entitledness. Maxine didn't see it from that point of view. She just saw it as we learn her story, which is so sad because she's been through so much. She was an abandoned orphan who grew up in an orphanage and idolized these characters that Palm Royale, like to be somebody. That's who she saw as being successful, and to finally be in it and then realize, oh wow, I have to really fight for this. But also there's this other side where people who she knows are good, like Doug and Mitzi, it affects everything. It really is like a toxic atmosphere. It promotes a lot.
Well, it's like a drug too, because it becomes very addictive. Even if you watch some of the parties, fundraising or whatever you want to call them, just even how people interact, it is very driven off the atmosphere and the people. It is very addictive. How they're acting and how people are responding to them. That could be what Doug has been experiencing too. It's like, oh, people are noticing me. I like this. Women are noticing me. Men are wanting to be my friend. People are stopping me. I don't have to be a pilot anymore. So there's a lot of things that it probably was very easy to go back into his old pattern.
And I noticed something, and I don't know if I'm completely correct in this, but the rocket launch party where it's hosted and Mitzi is also wearing the costume, she's working there as one of the girls. Yeah. When she introduces, when Maxine goes out, says, oh, Mitzi, oh, this is my husband, Doug. You've never met him. And they both act a little bit weird. And then after he leaves, Mitzi says to Maxine, I didn't know that was your husband. Like, I think she maybe was like, oh my God, I don't think she knew that until that point. And then maybe she was kind of drawn in. Mitzi's a very young character. She was in this emotionally abusive relationship before. The guy was telling her she was crap and being awful to her. I think she maybe thought, oh, this guy wants me who has like power and this and that. But maybe she didn't realize who he was. Maybe he didn't introduce like his full name, or maybe she just didn't put two and two together. I think that may have been the point where she was like, oh my God, this is my friend's husband. Yeah, but I just thought of that right now. I was like, oh, that's so weird. That's probably, it was very obvious, but maybe it just hit me now. But yeah, it shows you this glimpse into this world that is really vapid and shallow and just based on appearances, and how you see this one character, maybe two characters, Ricky Martin, because he too is trying to kind of, he plays like a waiter at the club. They also call him the pool boy at Norma's house, even though he's actually sticking around to care for Norma. Yeah, he really genuinely cares for her.
Yeah, and she really cares for him too. She even offered to marry him so that he would have money, not be in a relationship, but just to take care of him because he's always take care of her. Because they're friends. But people don't realize it. They just feel like he's using her or something.
Yeah. And he really doesn't seem to be so much into that. He's not driven by that. And he starts to see these foils and characters, these oppositions to this shallow lifestyle. You also see it change, not only with Doug's character from kind of like, oh, he seems so good, to kind of getting into that world. But you see Mary, played by Julia Duffy, she is very cruel and makes some cruel remarks and is very much part of that snotty mean girl group.
Yeah.
But then when she helps with the birth of someone in the tub, actually, I can't even remember who that is.
Just someone in the group.
Someone in the group is having a baby and she helps with it. It awakens something in her where she connects with her like, oh, I am a feminist. But then she kind of starts to remember, it sounds like she was kind of emotionally or maybe abused by her husband. He used to lock her up for just having thoughts and feelings and would call her crazy. She gets really upset and associates that with Nixon's policies. Maybe it was something to do with Nixon. Ultimately, she gets radicalized and wants to kill the president.
Yeah.
Because he's coming to visit at Maxine's beach ball.
With the astronaut.
Which is its own little occurrence. How that happens is so funny and weird. Of course, it would only happen to Maxine. She does have a unique luck with things, which Maxine brings Norma to a party because Norma was invited to this party by Dinah because Dinah is now pursuing a nonagenarian, a 90-year-old rich man, because she needs to be taken care of because her husband is sent off to jail for a fraudulent scheme. Maxine accompanies Norma as her caretaker. And as the boat is kind of going along on these choppy waves, Norma sets her wheelchair, unlocks it so that she's kind of knocking into Maxine, whose back is to her, and knocks her into the water. See, it is very intentional.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. She tried to poison her and ended up poisoning Anne Tootie. I don't remember her name in real life. I just know her as Tootie.
Mindy Cohn.
Mindy Cohn, yeah. So Maxine ends up in the water and she's stranded. Nobody knows she's in there. She's kind of floating along and it looks like she might die. She handles it really well. She names her log of wood Bernadette. And she's like, don't float away, Bernadette. And then all of a sudden she sees something parachuting towards her after it was quite a while. It seemed like maybe like a day or something, which is a lot floating in the ocean. And frightening sharks, but it ends up being this space capsule. And this was the time when they first walked on the moon, right? It was 1969. There was that moon landing. So you assume it's the same, like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They land right near her and rescue her. And she gets all this press coverage because she has this astronaut that she invites to the beach ball. He wants to go. And then the president wants to meet the astronaut. So he's going to make an appearance at the party. So the beach ball ends up being, that's like the end of year season bash. It ends up being saved and everybody's jealous. All the mean girls are just jealous. I'm just going to call them mean girls.
Now Maxine, it's all about her. They're noticing her. Everybody is. She's not invisible.
Which is so funny because it's like, she almost died in that. Nobody even apologizes or was like, Mary's like, I had to look after your mom because she just abandoned her. Where do you think she abandoned her in the middle of the ocean? You didn't even think she fell off? I just thought that was so crazy. It was crazy. And she's like fighting for her life. And then she's like, nobody noticed, by the way. And she handles it really well. She's just like, okay, so on to the party. And then she realizes that Evelyn and Dinah have ruined her orders. They order rosé and cottage cheese instead of champagne and caviar.
But then they find out that's Nixon's favorite food.
Yeah, it always works in her favor.
It was like ketchup and cottage cheese. It was like all random stuff that he's like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's like, no matter what they try, and they're so frustrated. Like, why does she always come out on top despite their efforts to sabotage her? I think it's just a good series. We always take a little bit of a mental health or some sort of lens in viewing it. Maxine wanting to fit in her background as an orphan and then seeing how she's actually making some positive change in this, and it really upsets all these rich, wealthy, apathetic
and she's just trying to find community, trying to find family, trying to find acceptance. It's fitting that her best friend is Robert, who's doing the exact same thing, trying to find where he belongs and who his family is. Everybody else is just out for themselves and not really looking out for anybody else or how to help anyone else. It seems like Maxine is very much like, she wants to be a socialite, but then she also is like, well, how can, what else can I get emotionally from this? It's not just about the fanciest gowns or money.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge difference, and that's something maybe she's bringing to this group. They're rejecting it left and right and blaming her. And also, we would be remiss if we didn't bring up the Rolodex, right? Norma's Rolodex, because this is something that Evelyn is after, because Norma has been such a queen bee for so long before she embolized. But maybe that's a real term, but it just sounds so strange when they say it, like they don't know what they're talking about. They make it sound trendy, but Norma has been keeping secrets and blackmails people into coming to the beach ball, an annual event at her place. It's very lavish, and forces them to donate and show up because she keeps everyone in check with their deepest, darkest secrets. Evelyn wants her paws on them because she's very much aware of that. It keeps everybody in check, and Linda ends up burning it. For some reason, Maxine gets blamed. Linda does too, by Virginia, I believe it is. It's interesting because it keeps this group in check. They don't have many morals or things they answer to. So I think Norma found a way to be like, this is how this community can stay in check.
Right.
And we can continue having money donated to these things. Everybody else can have a piece of the pie as well. And it kind of keeps everybody knowing where their place is. That
I know everyone's...
I'm Queen Bee.
Yeah, I know everyone's secrets. You do not want these out. I have control.
Yeah, and she even has some files, some Rolodex secrets on high-level people. She mentions, like, Teddy in the car crash, and I think she's referring to Teddy Kennedy, right? And say hi to Joe for me, Joe Kennedy, kind of like implying she's got some really high-end people, so this would be powerful to have. So for a while, Evelyn is saying, you need to get that to me, and I'll help you with the beach ball. At that point, Maxine kind of wants help. She's like, I don't have money and I don't really know how to do this.
Yeah.
But then she realizes the value of it. Linda is actually the one that burns it because she sees it as the root of all evil, and has her own secret of shooting. She ends up shooting her father at her wedding instead of Doug. Is Linda doing that to just get rid of the system in general, or is it just for her?
I think it's for both. It's probably mostly for herself, because I'm sure she really would not want that out. Then her role as the devoting daughter to her father who can't walk, that script is going to change. So then it's going to be, wait, you shot your dad?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of self-preservation, which I think is normal, but it's really strong in this group because that can make or break you, and social status is the currency there. But yeah, that's how they get their currency too. So
it must be very like how if people live like, I mean, if people were living like that in real life, it must be really stressful to always have these expectations and these appearances, and you kind of forget who your true self is. I imagine, like, if you're constantly trying to play a role.
If you even ever know. Yeah, and we really see with Evelyn, her husband Skeet ends up leaving everything to his daughter Linda, and she ends up kind of being a little bit outcast.
Yeah.
And so she has to, take power where she can, like taking Dinah's ex-paramour. The word lover bums me out, so I was
wondering what decade we're in with you keep saying paramour.
But her ex-lover, and she ends up hooking up with him, even though Dinah really seemed to be into him. So she's kind of scraping at the bottom of the barrel and showing her true self, that she would betray a friend, or I don't know if she considers them friends.
Yeah, I don't think they probably were ever friends.
And it actually seems any like of them are.
It's funny with the tennis person. It actually seems like Evelyn really likes him, not just as a conquest. It seems like she actually, like, this guy's actually nice and notices me,
and he wants to cook for her.
It's a little different.
I want to cook for you.
It's different than the relationship he and Dinah had. It seems like it's almost equal or matching with Evelyn and him.
I think Dinah did actually like him, but I think it was more like a lustful kind of thing, and also kind of like, you're so different from my husband because you're very passionate and we can do all these things. But she also didn't choose him over the 90-year-old rich guy.
Money won again. So her status and how it can affect her, definitely won. And it did seem like with Linda, Penelope, I don't know if she had a change of heart or something, where eventually she gave Evelyn the house back.
Oh, she did. Oh, right. Because wasn't there a bargaining or something, like, I'll give you the house back? No, because it came in and she said, unless you let me have access to this house, I'll live here. I don't think she gave it to her, but she said, like, you can live here kind of thing. And then I think Evelyn had tried to blackmail Linda through Doug, but then Doug went to Linda.
Right.
I think Evelyn still had that secret somehow. I'm forgetting the details, but yeah, she kind of got that back.
You're right.
Yeah, so I think it's watching the clawing and fighting to keep this status, because this is seemingly all some of these people have. Not even just the women.
Yeah.
See it with Doug and Perry, Dinah's husband. They kind of have to maintain that too. And maybe in a different way. I think that this is a really cool way to present it. I love the 1969 Palm Beach fashion. I love the shirt you're wearing. I love 60s fashion like that. If I could bring back a decade of fashion, that would definitely be one of them.
Yeah, it was really fun. I like all the pinks and yellows and just how bright everything was. The set was really pretty. I thought it was very well done, and also really interesting how so many people are tied into this club and how it defines them, what they would do to keep their status. It tells you a little bit about people's relationships, personalities, and friendships. There's only a couple that really depicted true friendships, like Maxine and Robert. Because even
just
Doug,
like frenemies, they have to stay friends, but they're really just keeping an eye on them. You know, I just thought of something, and I don't know. Tell me what you think about this. That I think maybe there is a little bit of a juxtaposition of the feminist theme, and saying that maybe a lot of women didn't have women that, you know, this was kind of the best that they could expect. You know what I mean? Like they either had to work for this in the social circle and be somebody, but there really wasn't any other way to be somebody. Like you could fight for women's rights, but people would constantly be looking down on you, would call you names. And, you know, maybe this was the way to be kind of respected in their minds. And maybe these women felt like this is the only way I can be.
And that makes sense. It could be a sense of power. It could be a sense of their independence. So their fundraisers and stuff was, in a sense, their job and their identity. It's probably not healthy, but it is probably, in a sense, it is very a dual way to think about it.
I think at that time in 1969, that was very much on the verge of that, like where there was kind of a questioning of how is a woman seen? How are they, do they work, or are they represented through kind of this status that they have? Because otherwise it's more their husband. Their husband gets the visibility.
And that's usually the identity. Well, what does your husband do?
Yeah.
Even today, people still do that. Like, oh, well, hello, I'm here. You know, like I'm sure that happens in different relationships where the wife is like, you know, hello, I have an identity.
Hi, I'm here. I think that is a really important point, to just kind of say, not to excuse these people's behaviors, but to say maybe that was something that was probably the highest you could get. Like even if you got a job, maybe there was only certain jobs that were allowed, and it was like secretary, teacher, or maybe nurse's aide. To some women, it was like, okay, this is something that feels good, or something that they had to take because of necessity.
Right.
But to these women, they felt like, well, this is how I am somebody. Like, and again, in their own vein of thinking, that kind of narrative, and maybe what was pushed in wealthy circles.
Yeah. Well, and also working would be beneath them. So if they were to get a job, it just would be beneath what they feel as though their worth is.
Yeah. And I think Maxine, being a former beauty pageant winner, she won a lot of them, even though she used different names that were like former Palm Royale members, which I think is hilarious. I think she convinced herself from a young age, saying, if people value me externally for beauty and for who I am and judge me to be deemed worthy, then I'm worthy. And I think she's starting to realize that's not, she's starting to kind of have a little bit of a dissonance and realizing, oh, maybe this is not. She actually cares about, I mean, with Dinah especially, she's really like, tell me, she is a good friend to her. Even though she misrepresents how much money she has, I think she's just trying to fit in.
Yeah.
That bums me out, how Dinah treats her, and Evelyn. I don't love that. On a happier note, I love the fashion shows that they have at the stores. Apparently they used to do that, where they'd have live models for more upscale boutiques or stores.
Right.
And they would like show off the latest fashion, and they'd be like, oh, I need that, because it was tailor-made, one of a kind. I was like, oh man, that's nice.
Just put it on my credit with the club.
Yeah, and they give them drinks, they have private shows, they can make a day out of it. I was like, that's fun. I love that, and I love the fashion. So that was really cool. There were a lot of jokes in between. There's a lot of scenery that's very Florida, like Palm Beach,
yeah, old time
of that
Florida.
time.
And
I
that
really
Ricky
liked
Martin
it.
doesn't age. I mean, like, what the heck? He's like in his
doesn't.
50s.
And he doesn't look like he had a crap ton of cosmetic. I'm not saying, I don't know if he did or not, but it doesn't look like it. He just looks
he probably just likes to eat
lovely.
well. Yeah.
He's
And
so
yeah, he's very, very fit. He looks the same as he did in Menudo. What was the name of his Menudo?
He was just on his own. Oh, he was in Menudo when he was younger, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, but he was like on his own, just
right away.
a star. Living La Vida Loca,
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God, and the dances in that. I've always had a crush on him. I mean, I know, like, there's no chance any way you look at it, him being a huge star.
Oh my gosh, he was 12 years old when he was in Menudo. So he's been in the scene. We've known of him since like 1984.
40 years.
You weren't even born, were you?
No. Oh, maybe just born. I don't really know my age, but yeah, around that time when he was just becoming famous. There's a whole backstory with Menudo and when they get older and they age out, and then some accusations that tie in with the Menendez brothers.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's a whole different story. Erin and I were talking about this. She recommended this to me. It was such a good find. I just loved it. I can't wait for the second season to come out. That was only the first season, so we probably will do the second season when that comes out because we love it so much.
There's a couple shows that we've done first season, like you probably will see season 2 or something of if they don't release all of it at once. But this will be one. It's a fun show. And if you have made it through this entire episode and you haven't seen it, go back and watch the entire season. It's fun.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we gave some spoilers, but it really is still so great to watch, even with knowing that. There's just so much that goes on there. And I love Kristen Wiig. I love a lot of people. Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
Alice Janney is just like the perfect character. Like, she comes off so brusque all the time, but it just fits.
Yeah. I know I've seen her in other stuff, but I guess I might have rediscovered her or found like in that show Mom. I really liked her in that.
Oh, I don't think I saw that.
It was good. I really liked her in this, and I liked all the cast. I liked that there was a lot of ode to the 80s and 90s with the different actors that they chose.
Yes. Allison Janney also had a small appearance on Frasier, the original one. She played an artist that ends up getting mad at Frasier. They were dating, and he says something that rubs her the wrong way. But yeah, it's just a really great show with a star-studded cast. So I think, any other thoughts before I try to come up with a fun question?
Okay. No, I mean, I do like it. I think a lot of the themes are friendship, identity, finding out who we are, and it's just, and that's tough, like, because sometimes people are, who they think they are might not be exactly who they are, and I think a lot of people are starting to have their road to self-discovery.
For sure. Yeah, that's really well summed up. I think there's always a mental health slant, but we like to look at some fun shows. You don't have to look at it through that lens. It's just a fun show overall with great people in it. So I'm doing air quotes, fun question is, I really will try to make this fun. And I hope you can remember this because I'm trying to remember it too.
Okay.
If not, I will come up with a different one. But of the outfits that you saw, were there any that you were like, I want that one, or were your favorite? All the fun outfits.
I remember a yellow one, but I don't know. Let me Google it really quick and I'll be able to answer.
Okay, I can answer it because I just thought of one. Mine was not anything extravagant, but it was this one like orange, kind of very 60s Kristen Wiig wear. It was orange in the front. Oh, it was to the space launch party. It was like this orange dress and it had kind of like a peach panel in the back. And I just thought it looked so nice and elegant. I don't think it would look great on me, but I just thought it looked great on her. And I just was like, I love it. And the way they styled it.
Yeah.
I thought that was so pretty. I really liked it. That was something I would try on, but I don't think I would look great in it.
Yeah. Well, I think I really liked the outfits they wore at the beach, sitting at the lounge chairs, and like their hats and the glasses and the bathing suits were so fun looking, and the wraps, and it was just a whole
wear.
Yeah, it was just really fun to sit at the pool.
For
Not
sure.
just
Yeah, because they all wear like these fancy heels and everything's just so well designed. I love that. So I think that kind of wraps up what we were saying. I know this was a little bit of a longer one, but we just loved the show. a step away from Winona and Cher, but we will always honor them. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you want us to add anything else with that, or if you have any ideas for any future shows. We love that. Follow us on social media. Wicked Psychotherapists on Instagram. On Facebook, we are The Wicked Psychotherapists, a little bit different. Follow us, and if you can write us a 5-star review, that would be wonderful for this new year. I know we're well into it, but that would just help us out a lot. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. Everyone have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.